we move. Now we move to the next speaker. That is Professor Frédéric Bayer. We have the pleasure to listen again, Frédéric, that had a very interesting talk on electric sense yesterday in the half-day workshop that we had with the Complexity Alive. And now we have this talk here at the special session on underwater communication with artificial electric sense. So Frédéric, please.
Yeah. Okay, thanks, Donato. But I cannot. Okay. Now I think. Yes, it's okay. Okay, good morning, everybody. Well, first of all, I am in a hotel and it's not very comfortable. So I shut off my video because it's not very stable. So I hope everything will be fine.
We are very well.
Okay, so after the nice talk of Gerhard this morning, talk again about electric sense, but from the point of view of roboticists. And my talk is entitled Underwater Communication with Artificial Electric Sense. Essentially, all this work has been done by my colleagues, Mohamed Boukens and Vincent Le Bastard, with the great help of Gottfried Jansen van Vuren from Scuola Superior Santa Ana. Okay, so this slide was already in my talk of yesterday. Sorry for the repetition. What is electric sense? Just to know the principle, in order to perceive their environment, electric fish polarize a specific organ that they have evolved in a long evolution, which is named the electric organ, which is located in the tail of this fish with respect to the rest of their body. And this polarization generates a kind of battery. And so this also generates around the fish an electric field, which has a dipolar shape, and it's a three-dimensional field. And also, due to the conductivity of water, a field of electric currents, which has exactly the same geometry. Now, if you put an object in the surrounding of the fish, it interacts electrically with the field, and this perturbs the field. And the fish can sense this perturbation thanks to a dense array of electroreceptors that cover its skin. And so we can say that by comparing the currents crossing the skin of the fish with and without object, the fish can perceive the properties of these objects, as their shape, their location, and also a kind of electric color, which is, for instance, the resistivity of the capacitance of these objects. Now, remarkably, electric fish have evolved a wide diversity of morphology and also of types of emitted electric signals. This sense has been invented twice by nature, once in Africa, once in South America, with many phenomena of convergent evolution. And roughly speaking, we can classify the weak, what we name the weak electric fish. That means that those that can perceive their environment with this active sense, into wave fish that emits continuous signals close to be sinusoids, and pulse fish that emit pulses with a high frequency content, rich frequency content. Okay, with this kind of sixth sense, electric fish can navigate confined space and turbid waters. They can find their prey and escape from their predators. They can localize and recognize objects. In fact, for mathematicists, that means that they can solve complex inverse problems that are even beyond our knowledge in applied mathematics today. They can build maps of their environment. We don't know exactly how, but they can. And they can also, as Gerhard told us this morning, interact and communicate in group And for instance, they can achieve complex and artistic courtship rituals. Okay, so these performances have attracted the attention of a few roboticists, and they gave birth to what we name today the artificial electric sense for underwater robotics. We can also extend this sense in air. Okay, so in fact, the idea is that there is no sensor technology so far for equipping underwater robots able to navigate confined spaces and turbid waters, which are the natural habitats of these animals. In particular, the sonar fails due to multiple echoes when there are many obstacles around, and the visions, of course, fails due to the turbidity, the opacity of water. And even you can use electric sense in muddy waters like here. So electric sense offers nice perspective for underwater robotics in these harsh conditions. And in particular, it is omnidirectional. It is a short-range sense, but which is very adapted to confined environment with many obstacles. It is cheap, and it has several modalities. It can be used, for instance, in passive and active mode. In passive, that means that you only sense an exogenous electric field, and in active, this is what I have explained first. You generate a field and you measure the reflection of this field by obstacles. And also it has a vision and haptic modality. You can see it as a vision with the skin, which is a kind of electric retina, but also you can interpret electric sense as a kind of touch with no contact. And it's in fact very rich for the roboticist to use this second interpretation. Okay, now I can show now you the principle of our electric sensor, which has been developed in the context of a European project where Gerhard was involved. It was the Angel project. So the principle is the following. This is an insulating shell, which can be a probe, but also a robot, over which is arranged a set of electrodes. And the whole morphology obeys bilateral symmetry. This is very important in order to simplify many problems for roboticists. One of these electrodes is the emitter, and it is connected to a generator, a wave generator, that set under voltage all the other electrodes which are grounded, and we measure with ammeters the currents that flow across the other electrodes, which are now receivers. Okay, this remarkably, this sensor can work in active and in active and passive mode, not in active and active mode. And its range is about 1 body length in active mode and 2 in passive mode. It's close to what the fish. Okay, so we will measure, of course, all the currents and that flow across these receivers that are gathered in a vector of measurement. With this technology, we have addressed several issues in underwater robotics, as the navigation based on the model or sensor-based, active and passive, based on active and passive sense. We have also studied the object electrolocation with Kalman filter and other algorithms as a music algorithm, object recognitions with ellipsoidal shape, and telemanipulation through the design of an electro-haptic feedback in order to assist the remote control of a manipulator underwater. And now the next step, and what I'm going to talk about today, is the communication. Okay, so this last topic has been addressed in the context of the European project, which has been coordinated by Thomas, the University of Graz. And so the idea was to design and build a big robotic swarm able to deploy in the Laguna of Venice and to monitoring it on the long term. This is an heterogeneous swarm, which is constituted of 3 types of robots. The first are named the APADs. They are platforms that can move at the surface of water. And they serve as as interface with human. They can collect the data of the other robots. And also they play the role of energy docking stations for the other robots. The second type of robots is what we name the artificial muscles. So they are small factory of sensors. They stay on the long term on the bottom of the sea, and they can surface. They can go up and down, and in order to exchange the data they have collected with the APADs. And between both, we have the AFISH, which are small AUVs that can communicate typically with the artificial muscles. Okay. And all this has been designed, the AFISH and MSL by scholars. Okay, now here is the targeted scenario for electric sense that we have addressed in this project. One AFISH seeks muscles while avoiding obstacles. When it has found a muscle, it aggregates with it. Then they exchange messages. It disaggregates with the muscle, and the process resumes. And all the scenario needed to be addressed with electric sense only. Now you see the 2 subcultural robots which are equipped with electric sense. So in the 2 robots, the emitter, there is one emitter in the bottom of the artificial muscles and in the tail of the AFISH, and there are 4 receivers. Give the north, east, west, and south measurements for the muscles, and left, right, and top down for the AFISH. So we have 4 currents. And the AFISH can be propelled with the axial velocity, V, and they can be steered with this lateral propeller. Now, what you see here is the shape of the basal field of this. So we are in active mode, and by basal field, we mean a field which is not disturbed by the obstacles around the environment, in a free environment. Okay, and so you see that here it's the profile view of the muscle. So we have this dipolar shape field, and here it's a view seen above, from above. And so in this case, it has this radial symmetry, which has been exploited in the rest of the study. And here you have the classical dipolar shape for the AFISH. So if we measure the currents that flow across the electrodes, the receiver electrodes, in these conditions with no objects around, this defines what we name the basal currents. And if we are interested into the perturbation of this field by the environment, we have to remove this basal current from the measured current, which are named I here, and this defines what we name the perturbative currents in active mode. And in passive mode, you just have to say that the basal currents are 0. There is no basal current because the robot is not active. It only perceives exogenous fields. Now, owing to the bilateral, so I will concentrate my talk on AFISH, which are the most interesting robots for electric sense in the context of circuitry. So owing to the bilateral symmetry, left-right, it is convenient to recombine the electric currents as follows. We define 2 currents, new currents that we name the axial currents and the lateral ones. The axial currents, they are simply the sum of all the currents that flow across the 4 receivers. And the lateral currents, they represent the difference between the left and right. And here I have to say that we are also concentrated on the case of planar navigation. If we are interested in a 3-dimensional navigation, we also can add the kind of vertical currents, which is the difference between the top and the down currents of these 2 electrons. Now, if we consider a fish subject to an electric field, which can be produced by a polarized object in active mode or by another robot in passive mode, the axial current, basic electrostatic laws show us that the axial currents are proportional to the difference of potential between the 2 isopotential, one which cross the nose of the fish and the other which cross the tail, while the lateral currents are proportional to the projection of the electric field evaluated at the nose onto the perpendicular to the body axis of the fish. Based on this insight, that means that we can use the lateral current to measure the misalignment of the fish with respect to the field, to the ambient field. And in particular, when these lateral currents will be 0, that means that the fish is completely aligned with the external field. And the axial currents, they are used to know the electric nature of the obstacles, or if a muscle is in front of the fish or behind it. Since in this case, these 2 cases, the sign of these axial currents is changed. And also when the A fish is aligned with the electric field, this axial current indicates the distance with respect to the emitter. Since when we go closer to the emitter, the difference of potential between 2 successive isopotential increases monotonically. Sorry. Okay. Now, here are the requirements for communication in a swarm. So to communicate with muscles, a fish needs to perform 3 behaviors. The first is the exploration with obstacle avoidance. And remark that in this case, any passive robot is considered as an obstacle. And this is achieved in active mode, as the first picture I showed you in my first slide. In the second behavior is aggregation. That means that a fish will join muscles in order to communicate. And it is divided in 2 steps. The first is the alignment with the muscles. That means that the fish align with the electric field. And remember that it is radial of the muscle with his nose pointing toward the muscle. And the second is the hooking with muscle. That means that the fish will be hooked by the electric field of the muscle at a distance which is compatible with the communication. And all that is done in passive mode. Of course, we have the communication next, and the fish and muscles exchange messages, and this is achieved in passive mode. Remark also that the obstacle avoidance and aggregation, they will be achieved by reactive control. That means that the fish will react to an external or a reflected field by obstacles. And this is based on the amplitude, on the measurement of the amplitude of the currents, as what I have told yesterday. And for communication, since amplitude is already used for navigation, we exploit the frequency. And so modulation, we use a frequency modulation with the FSK protocol. Now, all the robots need to alternate between passive and active modes in order to achieve all these behaviors together in a relevant manner for communication. And this has to be done under the constraints that two robots cannot simultaneously emit if they are in the sensing range. So this is well known from biologists. And as we are told this morning, this is what we name jamming avoidance. And the fish have evolved different strategies in order to avoid the jamming. For the pulse fish, they emit one after the other in ordered sequence, dependent on hierarchical relationships between them. And the wave fish is slightly change the frequency of their signal in order not to jam. In our case, the sensor generates wave signals. Remember, it's the principle of a sensor, but over some finite time windows. And what we did is to use the strategy of pulse fish in order to avoid the overlapping of these time windows. To do that, we designed a desynchronization algorithm, which is inspired from fireflies that can synchronize their blinking in order to attract their sexual partners. Now here you see more details about this algorithm. Each robot is equipped with an oscillator which governs the electric activity of the robot. When the phase of the oscillator, here you have a robot alone and here you have two robots. When the phase of the oscillator reaches here, it enters an active phase for a certain duration. That means it emits a signal, a wave signal, before the phase is reset and it will start. Now, when an external field is detected by the robot, this is the case here. This red robot is active and it has the blue one has detected, and its phase is frozen and delayed. Simply, this basic rule applied for each robot in interaction allows to avoid jamming. You see that here the two robots emit one after the other. Now it's the most difficult slide. I'm sorry, there are many equations. It's for the reactive control of navigation that need to realize obstacle avoidance, searching and muscle, obstacle avoidance, and navigation. So it is a two-stage controller with the first stage with a purely kinematic stage. This is the role of this stage is to control the forward velocity and the steering velocity of the fish, and it is a feed-forward feedback controller. So here VR is the reference constant forward velocity, which is non-zero only in the first behavior, searching object and while avoiding obstacles, since in this case, of course, the fish has to move in order to find amusants. And here you have a matrix of positive gain that you can tune in situ. And H is a matrix which is defined as follows for each behavior: obstacle avoidance, alignment, and hooking. And we mark that here, the sign of the actual current is used in order to ensure that the fish is repelled by any electrically contrasted object. If they are conductive or resistive, it works. Okay, now this is the vector of electric errors. So they are defined as follows, where we recognize our axial and lateral current. And they are here compared to some prescribed design values that are fixed once for all. And the lateral design current are always zero, but the actual ones, they can be equal to the Badal current in the active obstacle avoidance behavior, or equal to the hooking current that in fact will ensure that the fish is at a given distance from the hammer cells, which is compatible with the communication, with the range of communication. Now, just also to remark that the key parameter of this control law for obstacle avoidance is what we name the reactivity. The reactivity is the ratio of the steering gain of stiffness for steering over the forward velocity. And in fact, this reactivity quantifies a compromise between the curiosity of the fish and its prudency. The second stage is a dynamic controller. In fact, on this fish, we do not directly can control the velocity. So what we control, in fact, is the thrust of the propellers. And so we need a second stage which ensures that the velocity of the fish will follow the prescribed velocity by the first stage. So this is again, it has again the same form, a feed-forward term and the feedback term. Here, this is a proportional component which ensure the reaction, the kinematic reaction of the first stage. And here, this is an additional component, a derivative component, which damps the inertial oscillation of the fish. Because now you are in dynamics, so you have acceleration, so you have inertia, Newton laws, and so on. So it's a little bit more complex than a pure kinematic controller as above. And finally, I did not say, but just to evoke that in fact, the true control on these fish, they are not the thrust, but they are voltage of the motor. And so we also have to tackle a nonlinear transfer between this voltage and the thrust of the propellers, which is largely unknown due to dry friction and hysteresis. And so we decide to robustify the law and to address this issue, to fuzzify all the controllers that are defined here and which are essentially linear. Now,
1 minute.
Okay, 1 minute. Okay, so I go very quickly. Now, this controller can achieve all the expected reaction. It has been integrated in a variable structure controller with a graph graph of state events. And what you can see here, it's some experiments. First, it's to illustrate the desynchronization, several muscles here, or you can trust me that it works. Here is for the obstacle avoidance. We define 2 types of obstacle avoidance, stiff and soft, depending on if the object is close or enough far. So it plays with the reactivity that I have evoked. Oh, sorry. And what I wanted to show you, and maybe the most important, it's the communication. So in this case, the fish aggregate and communicate with the muscle. They exchange a message, and then it goes away and it transmits the message of the first muscle to the second with this control law. Well, sorry, it is frozen. Sorry. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes, but the picture is frozen. Now we don't hear you anymore.
Yeah, I am here. You hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
I'm sorry. And it's very uncomfortable because I am in this hotel and now everybody is
No problem.
Ouais. Okay, sorry for the...
I think you have then to finish just without slide.
Okay.
I agree.
Okay.
Okay, I think we lost Frederick.
We should even close the room.
Yeah.
In maximum 1 minute.
Okay, then thank you. I think now it is time for the keynote. This is why we have to close the room. Thank you.